Oklahoma, who came to K-State, was a part of some really good teams in the 70s. And again, at that time, there weren't very many big centers in college basketball. Well, Mitchell was big.
6'11" and 280, I think, and it was legitimate. A lot of guys list themselves at 7 foot and they're 6'9". I mean, this was legit 6'11". I mean, he was a huge man. I mean, tremendous offensive skills.
He was just thick and wide. And again, a lot of teams in the Big Eight at that time had a hard time matching up with Steve Mitchell because they just didn't have a guy of that size to play in the middle.
I remember one time they had a fight with Missouri and the John Brown, Al Eberhard team in Aaron Fieldhouse. And he stopped the fight. He was just like the sheriff. He just grabbed a whole bunch of guys and had them rounded up. And it was kind of, even from the press box in Ahern, you could see the look on guys' faces when he grabbed them, like, that's it, this fight's over.
Before season started, we always would pick up games up in the old gym. And one time, a lot of different people would come out and play. And one time, I was 6'10" at the time and had come off of high school, leading rebounder, set records in my high school for rebounding. Won it for a rebound in one of these practice games. And when I think I just about had the ball, all of a sudden I'm flying underneath the basket against a wall, and I turn around and here is Steve Mitchell and Nick Pino on the same, both going for the rebound. And I was this little skinny guy from high school, and Nick Pino had just graduated, and Steve Mitchell, who was a huge man. That's when I realized I better gain some weight. This is a very difficult game to play in the Big Eight back then.
They won the Big Eight championship, beating Missouri in the old field house down in Columbia, and he was just a giant in that game. He scored a bunch of points. He dominated the game. He was very capable of dominating a game. Kind of a gentle giant in a lot of ways, and Steve died tragically over in Europe. And I think a lot of it was probably the result of growing up as the biggest kid everywhere he went. And like a lot of guys who were really big, very quiet, and I think kept a lot of things inside himself. But the other players loved him, and the fans obviously loved him.
It's like John Wayne dying, I mean, you never think that's going to happen. It does happen to all of us, I understand that now, but in those days, those guys were bigger than life to most of us kids at that time.
He had some asthmatic problems, and some people think that basically what happens is in Italy, obviously you drink wine, there was wine, and he just had an asthma attack, and because he'd had some wine after dinner after the game one night, that he didn't wake up to get his inhaler.
Heard about it, when it happened, and yeah, very disappointing because Steve might have been one of those guys. They played in Europe, and might have been one of those guys that would have gotten back to the States. I mean, he was the prototype NBA backup center. I mean, big old body, could push on somebody, and plus could get it in the basket for you. So, I was thinking that he could work his way back to the NBA.
His untimely death was a shock to all of us. He was really a real talent, totally as a player. A defender, a scorer, and a very good rebounder. A tough loss for the K-State family.
When you talk about the K-State greats, and there are many, it's kind of sad that he's not up there a little farther in my mind, because he was a very, very good player.